Standing in the gleaming boardroom of Apex Capital Management, I faced down hedge fund titan Marcus Blackstone as he screamed about ownership of my revolutionary trading algorithms. The confrontation reached its peak when he declared he owned me and my code. In response, I calmly placed a single USB drive on the mahogany table, revealing that my employment contract contained a clause that made me the sole owner of the source code. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. 6 months earlier, I stepped off the elevator at Apex Capital's Manhattan headquarters, my heart pounding with excitement and nervousness. The gleaming steel and glass tower stretched 40 stories into the October sky, and I was about to become part of one of Wall Street's most aggressive hedge funds. My name is Natalie Carter, and at 28 years old, I had just earned my PhD in applied mathematics and computer science from MIT. My doctoral thesis on predictive market algorithms had apparently caught the attention of Marcus Blackstone himself. The receptionist, a polished woman with perfectly styled blonde hair, directed me to the 37th floor. As the elevator climbed, I thought about how quickly everything had happened. Just 3 weeks ago, I was defending my dissertation in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Now I was about to start a career that could change my life forever. Marcus Blackstone was waiting in his corner office when I arrived. He was 45 years old with silver hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to evaluate everything in terms of profit potential. His reputation preceded him, worth $300 million, known for aggressive tactics and a willingness to exploit anyone who could make him money. "Natalie Carter," he said, standing to shake my hand. His grip was firm, calculated. "I've read your thesis twice. Fascinating work on market volatility prediction." "Thank you, Mr. Blackstone," I replied, trying to project confidence despite my nervousness. "Call me Marcus. We don't stand on ceremony here. Time is money, and I don't waste either." He gestured toward a leather chair across from his massive desk. "I'll be direct. My previous quantitative team failed to deliver profitable models. I need someone who can develop new trading algorithms that actually work. Your research suggests you might be that person." The offer was generous, a starting salary of $200,000 plus performance bonuses. For someone fresh out of graduate school with student loans to pay, it seemed like a dream. But my father's voice echoed in my mind. He had been a contract lawyer in Denver before he passed away 2 years earlier, and he always told me to read everything carefully. "I'd like to review the employment contract before making a decision," I said. Marcus's assistant Sarah Williams appeared with a thick document. She was a cold woman in her 30s with auburn hair pulled back severely. "Standard employment agreement," she said curtly. "Legal reviewed it yesterday." As I flipped through the pages, one section caught my attention, Section 12.3 regarding intellectual property. It stated, "Employee retains ownership of proprietary methodologies developed using personal research conducted prior to employment." "This clause seems ambiguous," I said, pointing to the language. "Could you clarify what it means exactly?" Marcus waved dismissively. "Standard boilerplate language. Our legal team uses it in all contracts. Nothing to worry about." David Patterson, the nervous legal counsel in his 50s, nodded quickly. "Absolutely standard. We've used similar language for years." Something felt rushed about the whole process, but the opportunity was too good to pass up. I signed the contract not knowing it would become the key to my survival in the battle that lay ahead. My first 2 months at Apex Capital were exhilarating. I threw myself into developing what I called Phoenix, a machine learning system that could predict market volatility with 93% accuracy. Working 18-hour days, I built the code from scratch, drawing heavily on research I had conducted during my final year at MIT. Phoenix wasn't just another trading algorithm. It analyzed thousands of market variables in real time, identifying patterns that human traders missed. During development, I was careful to document how the system built upon my pre-employment research. though I didn't think much about it at the time. The breakthrough came on a cold December morning. Phoenix had been running test trades with $50 million for 3 weeks, and the results were extraordinary. $12 million in profits, a 24% return. When I showed Marcus the numbers, his eyes lit up with a hunger I had never seen before. "This is incredible," he said, studying the performance reports. "We need to scale this up immediately. $5 billion. That's when I noticed the change in atmosphere around the office. Tommy Rodriguez from IT started asking detailed questions about my development process. Conversations stopped when I entered rooms. I discovered monitoring software had been installed on my computer without my knowledge. Late one evening, while working alone in the office, I decided to investigate. Using my technical skills, I accessed areas of the company server I probably shouldn't have. That's when I found it. A hidden folder titled IP Acquisition NC, containing email exchanges between Marcus and his legal team. One email from Marcus made my blood run cold. "I don't care what her contract says. Find a loophole. This algorithm is worth billions, and I'm not sharing ownership with some fresh graduate." The next morning, I confronted David Patterson about the monitoring software. His hands shook as he admitted Marcus had ordered the surveillance. "It's standard procedure for high-value projects," he stammered. "I want to see my contract again," I demanded. Reluctantly, he produced the document. I photographed every page with my phone, sensing I would need evidence later. As I was leaving his office, David called out nervously, "Natalie, maybe you should consider what's best for your career here. Marcus doesn't like complications." That evening, everything changed. An email from HR appeared in my inbox, stating that due to performance concerns, my access to the Phoenix system would be temporarily restricted while they conducted a review. My stomach dropped as I realized Marcus was moving to lock me out of my own creation. But the real shock came when I discovered Marcus had already filed a provisional patent application for Phoenix, listing himself as the primary inventor and Apex Capital as the owner. He was trying to steal 18 months of my life's work, and he was using the very system I created to justify the theft. I barely slept that night, my mind racing with the implications of what I had discovered. Phoenix wasn't just successful. It was revolutionary. In the wrong hands, it could manipulate markets or cause tremendous damage. But in Marcus's hands, it was becoming a weapon aimed directly at me. The next morning brought a humiliating reality. My key card had been deactivated overnight. Security guards escorted me to the HR department where Linda Morrison, a stern woman with graying hair, was waiting with paperwork. "Natalie, you're being placed on administrative leave pending a comprehensive review of intellectual property ownership," she announced in a robotic tone. "This is ridiculous," I protested. "Phoenix is based on my graduate research. I have documentation proving that." Linda's expression didn't change. "Mr. Blackstone's instructions are clear. All access to company systems and premises is suspended until this matter is resolved." Walking out of Apex Capital that morning, carrying only my personal belongings in a cardboard box, I felt a mixture of rage and determination. Marcus had underestimated me if he thought I would simply disappear. My first call was to Elizabeth Harper, a prominent intellectual property attorney in Manhattan. My father's former colleague had recommended her years earlier. Elizabeth was a sharp woman in her 40s, with a reputation for taking on powerful corporations. "This contract clause is interesting," Elizabeth said after reviewing my documentation. "The language about retaining ownership of methodologies developed using prior research could work in your favor, but we need to prove Phoenix truly originated from your MIT work." "I have extensive documentation," I assured her. My thesis advisor kept detailed records of my research progress. Elizabeth nodded. "We'll need every piece of evidence you can gather. Marcus Blackstone doesn't fight fair, and Apex Capital has unlimited legal resources." Our investigation began immediately. Professor Robert Anderson at MIT provided sworn testimony about my algorithm development, including time-stamped emails and research notes dating back 18 months before I joined Apex. The evidence clearly showed Phoenix's core concepts originated during my doctoral studies. But Marcus wasn't sitting idle. Within days, I received a cease and desist letter from Sterling and Associates, one of Manhattan's most aggressive corporate law firms. They claimed I had stolen proprietary company algorithms and demanded I surrender all related materials. The letter was intimidating, filled with legal threats and accusations of corporate espionage, but Elizabeth saw through the bluster. "This is a pressure tactic," she explained. "They're hoping to scare you into settling before we can build a strong case." As legal fees began mounting, I faced a personal crisis that made everything more urgent. My younger brother Jake called from Colorado with devastating news. His cancer had returned and he needed expensive treatment that insurance wouldn't fully cover. I had promised to help him financially using my expected bonuses from Phoenix's success. "Jake, I'm going to figure this out," I told him during a tearful phone conversation. "I won't let you down." But privately, I wondered how I could fight a billionaire while my savings dwindled and my brother's life hung in the balance. Elizabeth's investigation revealed Marcus's pattern of exploitation. 3 previous quantitative analysts had left Apex under similar circumstances, but they lacked strong enough contracts to fight back. Kevin Walsh, one of the former analysts, had left the financial industry entirely after Marcus destroyed his reputation. "This guy is a serial predator," Elizabeth said grimly. "He identifies talented people, exploits their work, then discards them when they become inconvenient." Just as we thought we were building momentum, Marcus revealed his masterstroke. His legal team provided what appeared to be comprehensive surveillance footage showing me developing Phoenix entirely on company time using company equipment. "These recordings prove corporate ownership," his attorney declared during a tense meeting. But something felt wrong about the footage. Conversations I remembered having with Marcus about my pre-existing research were mysteriously absent. Key exchanges where he acknowledged my prior work had vanished from the recordings. "He's edited these," I told Elizabeth. "I know what we discussed, and half of these conversations are missing." Elizabeth immediately hired Dr. Amanda Foster, a digital forensics expert who specialized in detecting manipulated media. Her analysis would become crucial to our defense, but we had no idea how deep Marcus's deception actually went. The revelation that Marcus had been recording our interactions from day one was shocking enough, but discovering he had edited those recordings to remove evidence favorable to my case was a level of calculated malice that left me speechless. As I sat in Elizabeth's office reviewing the manipulated evidence, I realized I wasn't just fighting for money or recognition. I was fighting for my professional life, my brother's health, and my fundamental right to own my own ideas. "He thinks he can rewrite history," I said quietly. "Then we'll have to prove what really happened," Elizabeth replied with steely determination. Dr. Foster's preliminary analysis confirmed my suspicions. The audio recordings had been systematically edited using sophisticated software. Key segments supporting my claims about pre-existing research had been surgically removed while conversations that appeared to show company ownership remained intact. "This is professional-grade manipulation," Dr. Foster explained, showing us the digital artifacts that proved tampering. "Someone with serious technical expertise did this work." But even as we built evidence of Marcus's deception, he escalated his campaign against me. The cease and desist letter was just the beginning. Sterling and Associates filed for an emergency injunction claiming I possessed stolen trade secrets that posed an immediate threat to their client's business. The hearing was a nightmare. Marcus's attorneys painted me as a disgruntled employee who had stolen valuable proprietary information. They presented their edited recordings as evidence along with testimony from Apex employees who claimed I had been acting suspiciously before my termination. Your Honor, Marcus's lead attorney argued, Ms. Carter has proven herself willing to engage in corporate espionage. Every day she retains access to these stolen algorithms represents millions of dollars in potential damage to our client. Judge Patricia Wong listened carefully to both sides before issuing a temporary restraining order. I was prohibited from using, sharing, or discussing Phoenix's methodology with anyone outside my immediate legal team. Walking out of the courthouse that day, I felt like Marcus had put a muzzle on me. The one thing that proved my value as a quantitative analyst, my greatest professional achievement, had been declared off limits. Elizabeth tried to reassure me as we stood on the courthouse steps. This is temporary. Once we prove the recordings were tampered with, everything changes. But privately, I was beginning to understand the full scope of what I was up against. Marcus didn't just have money. He had connections throughout the legal system, political influence, and a willingness to destroy anyone who stood in his way. That evening, Jake called again. His condition was worsening, and the oncologist wanted to begin an aggressive treatment protocol immediately. The cost would be $300,000 over 6 months. Natalie, maybe I should look into other options, he said weakly. Absolutely not, I replied, though my heart was breaking. I'm going to find a way to help you. I promise. After hanging up, I sat in my small apartment wondering if I should accept whatever settlement Marcus might offer. Half ownership of Phoenix would still be worth millions, enough to save Jake and secure my future. But it would also mean validating Marcus's theft and encouraging him to victimize the next brilliant person who trusted him. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Kevin Walsh, the former Apex analyst who had left the industry, reached out after reading about my case in financial publications. I kept copies, he told me during a clandestine meeting in Central Park. Documents proving Marcus's pattern of IP theft. I was too scared to use them at the time, but maybe they can help you. Kevin's evidence was devastating. Internal memos discussing how to exploit employee innovation's legal strategies for claiming ownership of others' work and communications, showing Marcus had stolen ideas from at least 6 different analysts over 5 years. Why didn't you fight back? I asked. Kevin's laugh was bitter. I tried. He buried me under so much legal pressure that I gave up. But you're different. You have evidence I never had. Kevin also introduced me to Rachel Torres, an investigative journalist at the Financial Times who had been researching Apex Capital's business practices. Rachel was particularly interested in the pattern of exploitation Kevin described. This isn't just about intellectual property theft, Rachel explained during our meeting. This is about systematic abuse of power in the financial industry. As Rachel began her investigation, Marcus made his most desperate move yet. He filed a criminal complaint with the FBI alleging I had stolen trade secrets with the intention of selling them to foreign competitors. 2 days later, FBI agents appeared at my apartment with a search warrant. They seized my personal computer's backup drives and even my graduate school research notes. The investigation had suddenly become a potential federal crime. Ms. Carter, you need to understand the serious nature of these allegations, Special Agent Lisa Rodriguez told me. Corporate espionage is a federal offense carrying significant prison time. But as the agents conducted their search, something unexpected happened. Agent Michael Torres, the lead investigator, began asking detailed questions about Phoenix's functionality that seemed unusually sophisticated. This algorithm analyzes trading patterns in real time, he asked. Yes, among other things, I replied carefully. And it can identify unusual market movements. That's one of its capabilities. Agent Torres exchanged a meaningful look with his partner. Something about their questions suggested they weren't just investigating me. They were learning about Phoenix for reasons I couldn't understand. Only later would I discover that the FBI had been investigating Apex Capital for months, and Phoenix wasn't just profitable. It was being used for activities that violated federal securities law. Marcus thought he was using the legal system to destroy me, but he had actually drawn federal attention to his own criminal enterprise. The irony was perfect. In his desperation to steal my creation, Marcus had exposed himself to an investigation that would ultimately bring down his entire operation. The FBI's interest in Phoenix became clearer during my second interview at their Manhattan field office. Agent Torres was no longer treating me as a suspect. He was treating me as a potential asset. "Ms. Carter, we need to understand something about your algorithm," he said, leaning forward across the interview table. "Can it detect patterns that might indicate market manipulation?" I hesitated, uncertain how much to reveal. "It identifies anomalous trading behaviors, yes. Why are you asking?" Agent Torres exchanged glances with his partner before continuing. "We've been monitoring unusual trading patterns emanating from Apex Capital, patterns that suggest systematic violations of securities law." The revelation hit me like a thunderbolt. Marcus hadn't just stolen Phoenix. He had been using my creation to commit federal crimes. The algorithm I designed to predict market volatility was being weaponized for illegal trading schemes. "We've traced transactions worth hundreds of millions of dollars that appear to violate regulations against front-running and market manipulation," Agent Torres continued. "Your algorithm seems to be at the center of it." Dr. Foster's analysis of the edited recordings had uncovered something even more damaging to Marcus. While removing conversations favorable to me, he had inadvertently left evidence of discussions about using Phoenix for questionable trading practices. "Listen to this." Dr. Foster played a recovered audio segment. Marcus's voice was clearly audible. "The algorithm can predict price movements before they happen. We can position ourselves ahead of every major trade." Elizabeth immediately recognized the implications. "That's textbook market manipulation. He's confessing to federal crimes on his own recordings." Meanwhile, Rachel Torres's investigation for the Financial Times was revealing the full scope of Marcus's operation. She had identified shell companies' offshore accounts and a network of co-conspirators spanning multiple hedge funds. "This isn't just about stealing your algorithm," Rachel told me. "Marcus has been running a sophisticated financial fraud operation for years. Phoenix just made it more profitable." The personal cost of fighting Marcus continued to mount. My legal fees had consumed most of my savings, and Jake's treatment couldn't wait for the resolution of my case. I was facing an impossible choice between justice and my brother's life. But Kevin Walsh provided unexpected hope. He had connected me with other former Apex employees who were willing to testify about Marcus's practices. More importantly, he revealed that Marcus had made similar threats against their families when they tried to resist his exploitation. "He threatened my sister's teaching job," Kevin told me. "Said he had connections in the education department who could make her life difficult." The pattern of intimidation was becoming clear. Marcus didn't just steal intellectual property, he used fear and financial pressure to silence his victims. But this time, he had chosen the wrong target. Elizabeth and I developed a strategy to turn Marcus's aggression against him. Instead of trying to avoid his lawsuits, we would use them as platforms to expose his criminal behavior. Every deposition, every court filing, every piece of discovery would become an opportunity to reveal the truth. Marcus, meanwhile, was growing increasingly desperate. His attempts to pressure me through the legal system had backfired, drawing federal attention to activities he preferred to keep hidden. His response was to escalate even further. He began spreading rumors throughout the financial industry that I was unstable and litigious. He contacted potential employers, ensuring I couldn't find work elsewhere in finance. He even reached out to MIT suggesting my PhD research had been fraudulent. But Marcus's most shocking move came when he approached Jake directly. My brother called me in tears, describing a conversation with someone claiming to represent financial interests concerned about my irresponsible behavior. They said your legal problems could affect my treatment options. Jake sobbed. Something about insurance complications if you're convicted of corporate espionage. The threat against my brother crossed a line that Marcus would regret. Elizabeth immediately filed complaints with the FBI about witness intimidation, and Agent Torres assigned protection to Jake's medical facility. This guy is spiraling, Agent Torres observed. Criminals make their biggest mistakes when they feel cornered. Rachel's Financial Times article was scheduled to publish in 3 days. The story would expose Marcus's pattern of employee exploitation and reveal the federal investigation for the first time. Marcus knew his time was running out. That's when he made his most desperate gamble yet. Through intermediaries, he requested a private meeting with me to discuss a final settlement. He claimed he was ready to negotiate terms that would benefit both of us. It's obviously a trap, Elizabeth warned. I know, I replied, but I want to hear what he has to say. Agent Torres saw an opportunity. If you're willing to wear a wire, we could finally get him on tape admitting what he's done. The meeting was set for the following Monday in the same Apex Capital boardroom where I had first signed my employment contract. The location seemed fitting. The place where Marcus thought he had gained control over my life would become the scene of his downfall. As I prepared for the confrontation, I realized that Marcus had taught me something valuable. He had shown me that true power doesn't come from money or intimidation. It comes from being willing to fight for what's right no matter the cost. The USB drive I would place on that boardroom table contained more than just Phoenix's source code. It contained 18 months of my life's work, documented proof of Marcus's crimes, and evidence that would ultimately send him to federal prison. But more than that, it represented my refusal to be victimized by someone who thought wealth and power made him untouchable. The wire I wore to meet Marcus was smaller than I had expected. A tiny device taped beneath my clothing that would capture every word of our conversation. Agent Torres and his team had spent hours coaching me on how to elicit admissions without appearing to be fishing for information. Remember, he's arrogant, Agent Torres advised. Let that arrogance work against him. Ask questions that feed his ego while getting him to confess. The Apex Capitol building felt different as I approached it that Monday morning. The gleaming facade that had once impressed me now seemed like a monument to corruption. Security guards who had escorted me out weeks earlier now watched nervously as I entered the lobby. Marcus was already waiting in the boardroom along with David Patterson and Sarah Williams. The table was the same polished mahogany where I had signed my contract, but the atmosphere was charged with tension and desperation. Natalie, Marcus began with forced congeniality, I'm glad we could arrange this meeting. I think we both want to resolve this situation amicably. I'm listening, I replied, taking the seat across from him. Marcus leaned back in his chair with the confidence of someone who believed he held all the cards. Here's what I'm prepared to offer. $10 million cash immediate payment, plus partial credit for Phoenix development, say 25% attribution. In exchange, you drop all claims and sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement. That's generous, I said carefully, but I'm confused about something. If Phoenix was developed using company resources, why are you offering me anything at all? Marcus's smile became predatory. Because I'm a reasonable businessman. I recognize you made some contributions to the project even if they were built on company foundations. Company foundations, I pressed. Can you explain what you mean by that? Come on, Natalie. You used our computers, our research databases, our quantitative models. Phoenix might have started with your graduate work, but it became something much bigger under my direction. The recording device was capturing every word as Marcus continued to dig his own grave. But his next admission exceeded even Agent Torres's expectations. Besides, Marcus continued, his voice taking on a boastful tone, Phoenix has been incredibly profitable because we've enhanced it beyond your original design. We've integrated it with market prediction algorithms that let us position trades ahead of major movements. It's not just about volatility prediction anymore. That sounds like front-running, I said quietly. Marcus laughed dismissively. It's called smart trading. We identify opportunities and capitalize on them. That's what hedge funds do. David Patterson shifted uncomfortably, clearly recognizing that Marcus was describing illegal activities. But Marcus was too caught up in his own arrogance to notice. The algorithm processes trade data faster than human analysts, Marcus continued. We can execute positions milliseconds ahead of institutional orders. Last month alone, those trades generated $40 million in profits. Elizabeth and I had hoped Marcus would admit to stealing my work. We never expected him to confess to systematic securities fraud on tape. What about the offshore accounts? I asked, drawing on information from Rachel's investigation. Marcus's expression sharpened. How do you know about those? Financial journalists are very thorough, I replied. Those accounts are perfectly legal, Marcus said defensively. International diversification is standard practice for high net worth individuals. Even when they're used to hide trading profits from regulatory oversight, Marcus's face flushed red. You need to be very careful about making accusations you can't prove. The way you were careful about documenting our conversations? I asked, pulling out my phone and scrolling through the photos I had taken of my contract. Marcus's composure finally cracked. You think you're clever, don't you? A fresh graduate taking on someone with 30 years of experience and $300 million in assets. I think I read my contract more carefully than you expected, I replied calmly. Your contract means nothing, Marcus exploded. I own this company. I own the computers you used, and I own every algorithm developed under this roof. You're nothing but an employee who got lucky with some graduate research. So you admit Phoenix was based on my graduate research. Marcus realized his mistake too late. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant, I said, reaching into my bag for the USB drive I had prepared, and it's what this conversation has been about from the beginning. As I placed the small device on the table, Marcus's eyes fixed on it with a mixture of curiosity and dread. This drive contains the complete source code for Phoenix, I announced. Every line of programming, every algorithm, every function. But more importantly, it contains metadata showing when each section was developed, including timestamps proving most of the core code was written during my final semester at MIT. Marcus stared at the USB drive as if it were a venomous snake. That proves nothing. Source code can be modified. Not these files, I continued. They're signed with cryptographic hashes that verify their authenticity. Any attempt to alter them would be immediately detectable. David Patterson leaned forward to whisper something to Marcus, but Marcus waved him away impatiently. You're bluffing, Marcus declared. If you had that kind of evidence, you would have used it already. I was saving it for the right moment, I replied. Like right now when you just confessed to market manipulation, front-running, and using offshore accounts to hide illegal trading profits. The color drained from Marcus's face as he realized what had just happened. But instead of retreating, he made one final desperate gambit. You think you've won, he snarled. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Phoenix wasn't just used for trading. We've been providing market intelligence to foreign clients, government clients. This is bigger than securities fraud. This is national security. Marcus reached into his briefcase and pulled out what appeared to be classified documents. I've been working with the CIA on a special operation to monitor foreign investment in American markets. Everything we did was authorized at the highest levels. He slid the documents across the table. Your interference has compromised a critical intelligence gathering operation. You're not just a corporate thief. You're a traitor who's damaged American national security interests. The documents looked official, complete with agency letterheads and classification stamps. For a moment, doubt crept into my mind. Had I stumbled into something larger than corporate fraud? But as I examined the papers more closely, inconsistencies became apparent. Dates that didn't align properly, signatures that looked suspicious, formatting that seemed wrong for genuine CIA documents. "These are forgeries," I said quietly. Marcus's desperate bluff had failed, but it revealed the true depths of his criminality. He wasn't just stealing intellectual property and manipulating markets. He was fabricating federal documents and claiming to be a government agent. The wire I was wearing had captured everything. The securities fraud confessions, the threats, and now the production of forged CIA documents. Marcus had just transformed a white-collar crime into a federal conspiracy that could put him away for life. As I sat across from him in that boardroom, I realized that Marcus's arrogance had finally become his downfall. He couldn't resist bragging about his crimes, couldn't help threatening those who opposed him, and couldn't accept that a young woman from Denver had outsmarted him. The USB drive on the table represented more than just source code. It was proof that intelligence and integrity could triumph over wealth and corruption, that justice was possible even when the odds seemed impossible. But Marcus wasn't finished. His final card would be the most shocking yet, and it would nearly destroy everything I had fought to achieve. The forged CIA documents Marcus had produced were sophisticated enough to fool a casual observer. But Agent Torres and his cybersecurity team needed only hours to verify they were fake. Real agency officials confirmed that Marcus had never been part of any authorized operation. "This guy isn't just a financial criminal," Agent Torres told me the next morning. "Document forgery impersonating a federal agent, obstruction of justice. He's looking at decades in prison." But the investigation had also uncovered something far more serious than we had initially realized. Phoenix hadn't just been used for market manipulation. FBI forensic accountants had traced data transfers suggesting Marcus had been selling American financial intelligence to foreign operatives for 3 years. "The offshore accounts weren't just hiding trading profits," Agent Torres explained. "They were receiving payments from Chinese and Russian intelligence services. Your algorithm was being used to gather economic data that our adversaries could use against American interests." The scope of Marcus's betrayal was staggering. He had used my creation to spy on American financial markets, selling secrets that could undermine national economic security. The money involved exceeded $500 million. "We need your cooperation to build an airtight case," Agent Torres continued. "Without your technical expertise, we might not be able to prove how Phoenix was used for espionage." I agreed immediately. The thought that my work had been perverted into a weapon against my own country filled me with righteous anger. Marcus had not only stolen from me personally, he had betrayed every American citizen. Rachel Torres's Financial Times article published that morning, sending shockwaves through the financial industry. The story detailed Marcus's pattern of employee exploitation, but it only hinted at the federal investigation. The full scope of his crimes remained classified. Apex Capital's investors panicked. Within hours of the article's publication, major pension funds and sovereign wealth funds began withdrawing their money. The firm's assets under management plummeted from $8 billion to $3 billion in a single day. Marcus, cornered and desperate, made increasingly erratic decisions. He ordered the destruction of computer servers, claiming they needed to be upgraded for security purposes. FBI agents had to intervene with emergency warrants to prevent evidence destruction. He also attempted to bribe Kevin Walsh, offering him $2 million to recant his testimony about Marcus's pattern of IP theft. Kevin immediately reported the bribery attempt to federal authorities, adding another felony to Marcus's growing list of charges. "He's completely lost control," Elizabeth observed as we reviewed the latest developments. "Desperation is making him careless." But Marcus's most dangerous move was yet to come. Through intermediaries, he reached out to criminal organizations with connections to foreign intelligence services. FBI surveillance detected communications suggesting he was trying to arrange my disappearance. "We're moving you into protective custody immediately," Agent Torres informed me. "Credible threats have been made against your safety." The safe house was a nondescript apartment in Queens, guarded around the clock by federal agents. Jake was also moved to a secure medical facility after similar threats were detected against him. As I sat in protective custody reviewing Phoenix's source code for the FBI's technical analysis, I reflected on how much my life had changed. 6 months earlier, I had been an optimistic graduate student excited about starting my career. Now I was a federal witness whose testimony could help convict one of Wall Street's most powerful figures. But I also realized something important about myself. Marcus had tried to break me through legal pressure, financial intimidation, and physical threats. Instead, he had revealed a strength I didn't know I possessed. Every attack had only made me more determined to see justice done. The final confrontation came sooner than expected. Marcus, apparently believing his forged CIA documents might still provide some protection, requested another meeting through his attorneys. He claimed to have new information about the national security implications of the case. "It's obviously another trap," Elizabeth warned. "I know," I replied, "but I want to face him one more time." Agent Torres saw the request as an opportunity to catch Marcus in additional crimes. "If he's planning something desperate, we'll be ready for it." The meeting was arranged for the following afternoon in the same Apex Capital boardroom where our first confrontation had been recorded. This time, however, the room was wired with multiple recording devices, and Agent Torres had positioned a full surveillance team throughout the building. As I entered the boardroom, I carried the same USB drive that had started this whole revelation. But now it contained more than just Phoenix's source code. Dr. Foster had loaded it with encrypted evidence of all Marcus's criminal activities, including offshore account records and communications with foreign operatives. Marcus was waiting with his legal team, but his appearance had deteriorated significantly. His usually perfect silver hair was disheveled. His expensive suit wrinkled, and his eyes showed the strain of someone facing the destruction of everything he had built. "Natalie," he began with forced calm, "I hope we can finally put this misunderstanding behind us." "Misunderstanding," I replied. "Is that what you call espionage and market manipulation?" Marcus's facade of control slipped immediately. "You have no idea what you've destroyed. Phoenix could have made us billions while serving important national security functions. By selling American financial data to foreign intelligence services. Strategic intelligence gathering," Marcus shouted, standing up from his chair. "We were monitoring foreign investment patterns that threaten American economic dominance." His legal team looked horrified as Marcus continued his rant, apparently unaware that every word was being recorded by multiple federal agencies. "You think you understand how the world works," Marcus continued. "You think some contract clause gives you the right to interfere with operations vital to national security. I understand that you stole my work and used it to commit treason," I replied calmly. Marcus's face turned purple with rage. "I own you and your algorithms," he screamed. "Everything you created belongs to me. I made you rich. I gave you opportunities you never could have achieved on your own." In response, I calmly placed the USB drive on the table between us. "This key holds the only copy of Phoenix's complete source code," I announced, "and my contract says it's mine." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Marcus stared at the small device with dawning horror, realizing that everything he had built was slipping away from him. "Furthermore," I continued, "this drive contains encrypted evidence of your communications with foreign intelligence services, documentation of your offshore accounts, and proof of every securities violation you committed using my algorithm." Marcus's lawyer began whispering urgently in his ear, but Marcus brushed him away with growing desperation. "You're just a graduate student," he screamed. "A nobody from Colorado who got lucky with some research. I am Marcus Blackstone. I built a $300 million empire. An empire built on stolen ideas and criminal activities," I replied. "An empire that's about to fall." That's when Marcus played his final, most shocking card. With a look of desperate cunning, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out additional documents. "You think you've won," he snarled. "Phoenix wasn't just selling data to foreign governments. It was part of a coordinated effort to destabilize American markets on behalf of hostile nations. I've been documenting everything, building a case to prove you were the real traitor all along." He spread the new papers across the table. "These documents prove you embedded malicious code in Phoenix. Code designed to crash American financial markets when activated by foreign controllers. You're not a victim. You're a spy who infiltrated Apex Capital to plant a financial weapon." The accusations were so outrageous that for a moment everyone in the room was speechless. Marcus was claiming that I had designed Phoenix as a tool for economic warfare against my own country. "These documents prove you've been in communication with foreign handlers." Marcus continued, his voice gaining confidence as he spun his elaborate lie. "The USB drive you're carrying contains the activation codes for a logic bomb that could destroy the American economy." His desperation had led him to concoct the most audacious lie yet. But as I examined the forged documents he had produced, I realized Marcus had made a fatal error. In his haste to frame me, he had created evidence that would ultimately expose the full scope of his own treason. The final pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and Marcus's last desperate gambit would become the key to his complete destruction. The documents Marcus had just produced as evidence of my supposed treason were immediately obvious forgeries to anyone with technical knowledge. The supposed communications with foreign handlers contained metadata inconsistencies, the timeline didn't match Phoenix's development history, and the technical descriptions of malicious code revealed that whoever wrote them didn't understand how my algorithm actually worked. Dr. Foster, monitoring the confrontation remotely, confirmed what I already knew. "These forgeries are even cruder than the CIA documents," she told Agent Torres through their communication system. "Whoever made these was in a hurry and didn't have time for proper verification." But Marcus wasn't finished with his performance. Drawing on his remaining reserves of desperate cunning, he turned to address what he apparently believed were hidden recording devices. "I want the FBI to understand that I've been investigating this security threat for months," he announced to the room. "Everything I've done was in service of protecting American financial markets from this embedded weapon." "The only weapon in this room is your imagination," I replied calmly. "Phoenix contains sophisticated circuit breakers specifically designed to prevent the kind of market manipulation you've been conducting. Those safeguards, which you apparently never understood, are what stopped your illegal trading from causing systematic damage." Marcus's eyes widened as he realized I had just revealed something he hadn't known. The very algorithm he had been using for criminal purposes contained built-in protections that had been limiting the scope of his activities. "The code segments you identified as malicious are actually stability protocols," I continued. "They detect unusual trading patterns and automatically reduce algorithm activity to prevent market disruption. In other words, Phoenix has been protecting the markets from you." Agent Torres chose that moment to enter the boardroom with a team of federal agents. "Marcus Blackstone, you're under arrest for securities fraud, market manipulation, espionage, document forgery, and conspiracy against the United States." As handcuffs clicked around Marcus's wrists, he made one final attempt to maintain his fabricated narrative. "This is a mistake. I was working to protect American interests. She's the real spy." "Mr. Blackstone," Agent Torres replied with professional coldness, "we have 18 months of surveillance evidence, recorded confessions, financial records from 15 offshore accounts, and communications with foreign intelligence operatives. The only mistake was thinking you could outsmart the FBI." The arrests didn't end with Marcus. Over the following days, FBI agents took down his entire network: David Patterson for conspiracy and document forgery, Sarah Williams for money laundering, Tommy Rodriguez for computer crimes, and 6 other Apex Capital executives for various financial violations. The hedge fund itself was placed under federal oversight before being dissolved. Its legitimate assets were distributed to investors, while criminal proceeds were seized for forfeiture. The spectacular collapse of Apex Capital became front-page news across the financial press. For me, the legal victory meant more than vindication. It meant financial recovery beyond my wildest expectations. The federal seizure of Marcus's assets included his personal stake in Phoenix's profits, which forensic accountants valued at over $2 billion. When Elizabeth called to inform me of the asset recovery calculation, I had to ask her to repeat the number 3 times. "You're officially one of the youngest billionaires in American history," she said with undisguised pride. But the money, while transformative, wasn't the most important outcome. Jake's cancer treatment was immediately fully funded, and within 6 months he entered complete remission. Watching my brother regain his health and strength was worth more than any financial settlement. The broader impact of the case extended far beyond my personal situation. Congressional hearings revealed systematic problems in how hedge funds exploit employee innovations. The resulting legislation, officially titled the Inventor Protection Act, strengthened intellectual property rights for individual creators working within corporations. Marcus's trial became a landmark case in financial crime prosecution. His defense team's attempts to portray him as a patriotic businessman who had been deceived by a foreign spy collapsed under the weight of evidence. Text messages, recorded conversations, and financial records painted a clear picture of a man who had sold out his country for personal profit. The final verdict delivered justice on every count. Marcus was convicted of all charges and sentenced to 45 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. His personal fortune, estimated at $300 million, was completely forfeited. Additional restitution requirements would keep him in debt for the rest of his life. Watching Marcus's sentencing from the courthouse gallery, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Satisfaction at seeing justice done, certainly. Relief that the long legal battle was finally over. But also sadness for the waste of human potential. Marcus was undeniably intelligent and capable. Qualities he could have used to build something positive instead of becoming a predator. Kevin Walsh attended the sentencing as well. Seeing his former tormentor led away in prison clothing seemed to lift a weight from his shoulders that had been there for years. "Thank you," he told me quietly as we left the courthouse. "I never thought he would face real consequences." In the months following Marcus's conviction, I made decisions about my future that would have seemed impossible a year earlier. MIT offered me a full professorship with my own research lab. Multiple universities competed for my expertise, offering increasingly generous packages. I chose to split my time between academia and private practice, establishing the Carter Institute for Ethical Algorithmic Trading. The organization uses advanced mathematical models to generate returns while following strict transparency and stability guidelines. Phoenix continues to operate under my direct oversight, but now its profits fund educational programs and support for young inventors protecting their intellectual property. The algorithm that Marcus tried to steal has become the foundation for a new model of responsible financial technology. The Natalie Carter Foundation, established with part of my settlement, focuses on 2 primary missions: supporting families dealing with medical crises and providing legal assistance to inventors facing corporate exploitation. Jake, now healthy and completing his own graduate studies, serves as the foundation's executive director. Looking back on the experience, I realize it taught me lessons that no classroom could provide. The most important was about the power of principled resistance. Marcus assumed that wealth and influence would overwhelm any opposition from someone like me. He never considered that integrity and determination might prove stronger than money and intimidation. The contract clause that saved me wasn't just a matter of legal language. It was a reflection of my father's wisdom about reading carefully and standing firm on principle. His voice guided me through the darkest moments of the fight, reminding me that some things are worth any struggle. I've spoken about the experience at conferences and universities across the country, always emphasizing the same core message: your ideas belong to you. No one has the right to steal your creative work, and the legal system, despite its flaws, can still deliver justice to those brave enough to demand it. The story of my confrontation with Marcus has become a case study in business schools, law schools, and ethics programs. Students learn about intellectual property law, corporate exploitation, and the importance of reading contracts carefully. But I hope they also learn about the courage required to stand up to powerful predators. Recently, I spoke at MIT's graduation ceremony, addressing the same institution where my journey began. Standing at that podium, looking out at hundreds of bright young faces, I shared the lesson that meant the most to me. The contracts you sign in your career are important, I told them, but the most crucial contract is the one you make with yourself. A promise to maintain your integrity, protect your ideas, and never let anyone convince you that their power makes them right. After the ceremony, a young woman approached me with questions about starting her own technology company. Her enthusiasm reminded me of myself 2 years earlier, full of excitement about the future and confidence in her abilities. "What if someone tries to steal my ideas?" she asked. "Then you fight back," I replied. "You document everything you read, every contract, and you never let anyone convince you that you're not worth defending." As I watched her walk away, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Marcus had tried to destroy my faith in justice and my confidence in my own worth. Instead, he had taught me that both were stronger than I ever imagined. The USB drive that had contained Phoenix's source code now sits in a place of honor in my office, not as a symbol of victory over one corrupt hedge fund manager, but as a reminder that knowledge, when combined with courage, can overcome any form of oppression. True success isn't measured by the money in your accounts or the size of your office. It's measured by your willingness to stand up for what's right, to protect those who can't protect themselves, and to use your talents in service of something larger than yourself. Marcus Blackstone taught me that lesson, though certainly not in the way he intended. For that education, despite everything he put me through, I suppose I owe him a debt of gratitude. Justice was served, lives were saved, and the future became brighter for everyone willing to fight for what they believe in. Have you ever faced a situation where someone tried to take credit for your work or ideas? How did you handle it, and what would you do differently knowing what you know? Now I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story inspired you to stand up for your own rights, please give it a like and subscribe for more stories about courage overcoming corruption. Share this with anyone who needs to remember that their ideas and their integrity are worth fighting for, no matter who stands against them. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your creativity and your principles are the most valuable assets you'll ever own. Protect them with everything you have.